Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Norman Rockwell Museum. My name is Stephanie Plunkett, and I'm Deputy Director and Chief Curator here, and we're thrilled to have you. Thank you so much for coming. We have a very interesting evening before us, and I know that many of you are familiar with the work of a wonderful artist, Maurice "Pops" Peterson. We want to thank very much the Unger Foundation for their support of this program tonight. And I also just want to make you aware before we begin that we're actually live streaming this event on video. So if you are wanted by the FBI, time to leave. No, I'm kidding. We're not going to be filming the audience specifically, but we do want to capture Pop's talk on tape and share it with the world. So we do appreciate your understanding in that regard. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Pops Peterson, who has really prepared some wonderful experiences for us this evening. After nearly 20 years as a web designer, layout artist, and author for stage and screen, Pops Peterson has successfully returned to his roots in fine art. He began his art studies at New York's famed High School of Music and Art, continuing his education at Pratt Institute and Columbia University. For many years, he wrote for a number of significant publications, including Andy Warhol's Interview, Esquire Magazine, The Village Voice, and the New York Times. He's also authored stage plays, as well as television and screenplays, including the film Homework, which starred Joan Collins. Pops also created the world's first telephone soap opera, Dial a Soap, with John Rupp. I don't know if any of you remember that, but I would have loved to hear it. In 2012, Pops launched an irreverent advice blog called Come to Papa and found himself in need of illustrations for his blog. So he returned to drawing. Post by post, his illustrations became more elaborate and refined until he received his first portrait commission from noted designer and philanthropist Jacqueline Togut. To his delight, the commissions continued to come from friends and neighbors and throughout the Berkshires, and he was included in a New York group exhibition titled Artists Evolved. His debut solo exhibition, New Frontiers in Pop Art, was presented last summer at the Lauren Clark Fine Art Gallery in Great Barrington. So that was a wonderful launch for his newly revisited art career. Pop's series, Reinventing Rockwell, which he'll certainly be talking about tonight, reimagines the iconic works of Norman Rockwell in current-day scenarios. And you'll notice as he's talking about his work that one of the major pieces that he's created is associated with the piece to your right. This series celebrates the diversity in today's American scene and has won Pops an award from the Northeast Regional Conference on Fair Housing and Civil Rights, which I know he's very proud of. He's also been named the first artist in residence of the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination. And as if all of that were not enough, Pops is also the owner and general manager of 7 Salon Spa with his husband, Mark Johnson. Thank you again for coming out tonight, and please help me to welcome Pops Peterson.
Wow, what a crowd, wow. Wow. Thank you all for coming. Okay, well, first, thank you for taking your time today to come and see me. This lecture is called Reinventing Rockwell, My Improbable Journey in the Shadow of a Giant. I'm Pops Peterson, and this is my very first lecture anywhere. Gotta learn how to work the water. Okay, let's go. What is a Rockwell? A Rockwell is more than one man's style of painting. A Rockwell is a way of seeing our country, our history, and ourselves. Norman Rockwell paints a world of warmth and security, a feeling that everything is safe, cuddly, and fun. Challenges are always surmountable, Parents always care for you and dress you properly for any season or occasion. A Rockwell is the place in your mind where you can always retreat, a place where everyone belongs. There's hardly ever any violence, and even a little girl's shiner is portrayed as a triumph. The policeman always looks after you. The image of yourself in the mirror might not be as glamorous as a movie star, but no matter, because in Rockwell, you would always be loved. Who is Norman Rockwell? For most of the 20th century, he was America's best-known, most beloved artist. He rose to fame as the most popular cover artist of the Saturday Evening Post when magazines were the full-color entertainment of the day and the illustrators were rock stars. Rockwell captured not only the styles, but also the spirit of the times. He captured them and he defined them. He was very well known and well paid as an artist with a steady paycheck from 1916 to 1963 from the Post, 47 years on the same job. As ingenious as his work was and as enduring, which we now know, during his lifetime, he doubted his own integrity as an artist. As much as the masses loved, embraced, and rewarded him, he and the art world didn't consider his work high art, only illustration. Ironically, his paintings didn't usually illustrate anything, not stories, poems, or news events. They were original works that stood on the strength of their own visual narrative. He told America's story. Only after leaving the Saturday Evening Post did Norman Rockwell begin to make bold political statements. That was because he was prohibited from doing so. He couldn't rock the boat, said his bosses at the Saturday Evening Post. Controversy was taboo, just as it was forbidden to portray any person of color in any light except as a menial or something negative. Black Pullman porter? Sure. Black doctor? Never. The works he produced in his later years for Life magazine and independently are the ones that reveal his true progressive spirit and the depth of his compassion. Had he never truly expressed his heart with these images, it's doubtful that there would be a Rockwell Museum standing here now. Who's Pops Peterson? Until recently, I would say he's a business owner and artist here in the Berkshires, known for his digital landscapes and portraits. If you just got 1 minute, I can show you some of my work, okay? Yeah? Here's my artist statement from my debut solo show, New Frontiers in Pop Art, which I presented just last year at Lauren Clark Fine Art in Great Barrington.
Louis Armstrong once said, "If it makes your feet tap, that's good music." While Satchmo's philosophy applies brilliantly to my goals as a visual artist. I want to see your eyes widen, your eyebrows lift, and to hear the gasp as my vision takes your breath away. I want you to jump for joy, kiss me, and sometimes even cry. I want to bring your spirit with me to a place halfway between here and heaven, where love, beauty, and joy abound. Come along now.
In many ways, Pops Peterson is the opposite of Norman Rockwell. Norman was white, I'm black. He was born in the 19th century, and I'm from the 20th. Rockwell was a well-known, well-paid artist his entire life. I studied drawing and oil painting at the High School of Music and Art and Columbia, but didn't lift a crayon from the end of freshman year until I was 60 years old. Now, where Rockwell achieved the most elusive goal of every artist, a good, steady paycheck, all his life, I worked at just about everything from radio director, film reviewer, celebrity interviewer, voiceover artist, TV producer and host, office temp, screenwriter, web designer, programmer, and producer, layout artist, model, retail salesman, office temp, playwright, singer, author, did I mention office temp? And day spa owner of 7 Salon Spa. I'm the living Energizer Bunny. I just keep on going. I've had my flirtations with artistic success, a Hollywood movie. Here's the poster from the movie I wrote, Homework, starring Joan Collins. I still get royalty checks from that one. I did a musical play, TV writing and producing, stuff like that. But like Norman Rockwell, only now in this late phase of my life am I managing to make art that is reaching down to the core of my essence and making a deep contribution. Who was Norman Rockwell to Pops Peterson? Norman Rockwell was the first artist whose name I knew or style I could recognize. Before Picasso, Matisse, Gauguin, Renoir, Mondrian, I knew the name Rockwell. And I knew the way he drew a smile, a cheek, and a pout. The world he painted was the world I longed to live in, or at least to visit, or at least to see. I first came to Stockbridge after having visited London, Paris, and San Francisco. These places are all fabled for their beauty, but Stockbridge was it's the first place I visited where it was so beautiful that I wept. Standing on line in the chilly street, that was all because of Norman. I was in my late 20s then, and this museum was still located on Main Street when I visited his studio upstairs over Knee James, which is now the site of the Main Street Cafe. It was October, the autumn leaves were swirling around like dancing nymphs, and I felt I'd entered the world of my dreams, a world I doubted was actually real. You can only imagine how blessed I feel now that Stockbridge is the center of my everyday life. I can't believe it. And I find myself one of the characters in the real world and the real legacy of Norman Rockwell. My dream has come true. This is the truth I'm living, and I must say, it's making a little dizzy sometimes. Coincidence or maybe something else. Only recently I began to study Rockwell's life, and the similarities I found to my own life were striking. Some so uncanny that I had to scratch my head and say, what the hell is going on here? I only came up with the idea to make this series a year and a half ago, but I'm wondering now if the wheels have been turning to make all this happen for a very long time. Maybe since the day I was born. Let me show you. This is how big our country is, America. But we're going to drill down to this little circle, New York State, and keep on drilling down to the bottom of the state, where we're going to find New York City. Then there's Manhattan, and then to this little section of Manhattan called Uptown, where on February 3rd, 1894, Norman Rockwell was born at his family residence, 206 West 103rd Street. Right here. Ironically, Pops Peterson was also born in February 19th, 1952, in Sydenham Hospital, which stood on 264 West 116th Street. The distance between our two birthplaces is only 1 mile. Later, in his teen and young adulthood, Rockwell moved further uptown to 789 St. Nicholas Avenue. Now, wouldn't you know, I also spent much of my teens further uptown as well at the High School of Music and Art on 137th Street and St. Nicholas Terrace. And what was I studying on St. Nicholas Terrace? Painting. The distance between our teen locales is only 3/4 of a mile. Later in life, both Norman and Pops moved north, about 150 miles to Massachusetts, where in this little corner of the state, Stockbridge, in this little part of town, this little circle of this little town, we both bought property. Norman bought number 8 South Street. My husband Mark and I bought number 7 South Street for our salon. The distance between our two properties, 7 and 8, is only 25 yards. And now we're in the very same building. How about that? The magic begins here. 7 South Street. Hold on. Okay, what brought me back to painting after 40 years was nothing I planned. I was writing an advice blog to promote myself as an author. I'd written a book, and I needed some kind of artwork to liven up the blog posts. So I borrowed the first cartoon from a friend, but I figured I could just as well do my own artwork. It was easier than trying to find good new cartoons or stock photos every week, so I made a little cartoon with a stick figure in it. Let me show you, and I hope this works. Yes. Okay, here's Come to Papa, my blog, and all the way down to the very, 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 very beginning, having done nothing for 40-something years, this is the one it's not showing, is it? Okay, let's see, can I do that? And it is not gonna work. Okay, I don't know what to do about it. But anyway, I drew a stick figure, and then they got more and more elaborate until, and I've lost my feed, of course. Okay. Great. All right. Okay. Technical support. Here we go. Okay. So, I started with a stick figure that got more and more and more elaborate until I did this image here. And I said, wow, that looks like a Norman Rockwell. You know, I wonder if I could do that again. I had no intention of doing it, but there it was. So I set out to see if I could do something else that looked like Norman Rockwell. So I did this picture, under commission of Karen Allen, a really good friend, a portrait of her very handsome son, Nick Brown. I call it Nick's passion, his passion being for farming and cooking good, nutritious food. I was happy enough with the Rockwell style of the image, and people loved the portrait. And then I had a general sense how to change the colors and work with outlines to emulate the Rockwell style. But this is my first conscious effort to do it. I love the painterly quality I achieved, but I was starting to understand that it was the gentle spirit was the key to the Rockwell style. Sailor on Leave was an easy choice to do first because I had Nick to be the model, and his mom said we could shoot at her house. Actually, I wanted to do the runaway first, but it seemed too complicated. So I figured something simple like this would be great. So we went to Karen's house, where she had 2 hammocks to choose from. I had the black shoes, and I wanted to show the iPhone in them instead of the cigarettes, because I thought that would be the update we needed. There were only 2 elusive props, the sailor suit and the beagle. So I didn't know any beagles, right? But I figured I'll just use any little dog because women bring their little dogs to the salon all the time. And you would just I just couldn't believe my eyes when one day, what walks through the staff room entrance? A beagle named Ricardo. He had come because his owner stuck him with this girlfriend who was our stylist, right? And she didn't have time to bring him home, so she figured she'd bring him to work and have him stay all day. This has never, ever happened once in the 10 years that we've been open that somebody brings their dog to work with them to stay all day. So luckily, I could get them. The owner was very happy to help me out, and he was available on my one day off, which is Mondays. And so I had that. So then what I needed was the sailor suit. I looked all over eBay for a sailor suit that would be good for Nick. And the ones that were there, I thought they were all too big. But I got one. I figured it's no big deal. We'll just pin it in the back. He's lying down. We'll stretch out. If the pants were too short, because he's very tall, I would just stretch him out, Photoshop it, work it. It'd be fine. So I bought the sailor suit, put it on him, and it fit him as if it were tailor-made. So I think somebody really was looking out for that upstairs. The results really took my breath away. It was like the original, just more sensual and dynamic. The iPhone was a perfect metaphor for our new age. Everyone just loved it, and at this point, I felt I could take on the runaway. With this painting, I wanted to show changes in gender roles and ethnicity, a woman in uniform and a child of color. Local models I always use. Well, some more help came from above. I picked the Main Street Cafe for the shoot because it was authentic to Stockbridge and because it was right below Norman Rockwell's original studio, and it's still there on Main Street, but it didn't really look right. The chairs were off. I was going to go with it anyway. It's an update. But then my friend Jim Finnerty said he was going to play the soda jerk. He said, "Hey, Maurice, why are we doing it there? Don't you know it was taken in Joe's Diner?" I said, "It was?" So I had, with one day, I went up and I switched everything. And sure enough, Joe's Diner looked just right. And Jim came along to play the soda jerk. So here's the picture. Making this shot was difficult technically, but the real difficulty came in getting permission to use a real female cop in her uniform. We were sitting at the diner waiting for Heidi to show up when she called to say she just found out she couldn't pose in her uniform without permission from her chief. We all had to go home. The dealings with the police department were like this never-ending quagmire, but another miracle happened, and we got a firefighter's uniform from the fire department. This piece is now and forever called Stockbridge Fire Department to the Rescue. And that's Heidi Teutsch, Benjamin Gross, and Jim Finnerty. Well, I wanted to restage Freedom from Want in my house, which had great light, but I really wasn't looking forward to it, really, because I would have to get a bunch of friends to get all dressed up, come to my house where I'd have to cook a turkey dinner, borrow nice stuff to set a nice table, cook for everybody, take the picture, and then when they left, clean up. So I was going to put it off. But then another wonderful thing happened. My really dear friend Carol Mirko and Jim Finnerty said, "Hey, you're coming over for Thanksgiving dinner. Why don't we shoot the picture?" Oh my God, what a blessing. So all I had to do was rent some lights, show up, and shoot. And then afterwards, eat some of Carol's famous cooking. So everybody looked great, and the dining room looked spectacular. I call it Thanksgiving Gay Dinner. In this update, I wanted to show changes in styles and technology. Note the little girl, she's texting while her mother or older woman is, going, "Don't you do that." And, but I wanted to show that interracial couples, gay couples, everybody here in Stockbridge of today, we all belong. Actually, at first I wanted to do it as a lesbian couple, but the girls there weren't into that. So everybody convinced me to pose in this one with my husband, Mark, and we had Matt Finnerty press the button on the iPhone. So maybe it's not a miracle, but it was a great act of kindness from my friends. But the real miracle came later. As it turned out, Madeline, the one who's pointing her scolding finger, was ill with cancer on the day of the shoot. Even so, this was one of the happiest days of her life, largely due to being with Jim, the handsome gray-haired man at the table. There's two Jims. This is Jim Finnerty. That's the other Jim, Jim Brennan. So she was there with Jim, and she loved him for many years. They were finally together. Here she was happy having fun with her loved ones, a great day in her life. But just earlier this month, Madeline died. And to my amazement, I learned that she had left this canvas to Jim in her will. It was all she left him and all he wanted from her. My painting was something she valued even more than a jewel. Learning this was another indicator of the value of the work that we artists do. How lucky I am to be able to put a kind of form of solid love onto a canvas, a love that will live on in this way even beyond the grave. After leaving the Saturday Evening Post and hooking up with Look magazine, Norman made this masterpiece, The Problem We All Live With. I can't believe I'm standing here, really. Really, I'm pinching myself, okay? It's my first lecture, I'm sorry. Okay, this one made me weep when I saw it here. When I first came here, years ago. Well, I woke up one morning when the Ferguson riots were raging. I was furious because no attention was being given to the innocent children who now have to walk to school through a war zone. And what about the business owners whose lives are all up in smoke right now? They're all talking about the shooters and the rioters and everything, but what about the innocent people who just get caught up, and who is going to help them? So I was really upset, you know? I really was, and I just sat down and I just did this right away. I had planned I was going to get a model and do the set and the whole thing. I said, look, I can't wait. I'm just going to take the image off the internet and make it work and put it on the internet right now because I want people to see this. So this one I did the whole thing in about 2 hours. Usually it takes me several months to pull everything together, sometimes a year and a half or more. I did this one in 2 hours just because I just had to say something. Rockwell made several versions of a child's first haircut. His paintings always feature a father and a son at a barbershop, or a mother and a daughter at a beauty parlor. In my update, the father takes his son to a unisex salon, such as Seven Salon Spa, where a female does the barbering. Owning a salon, it didn't take a miracle to get this set or to book the models. The father was a good friend, William Caligari, and the stylist is our very own Colette Maletto with her son, Miles. So the boy is actually Colette's son, not William's. It's called The Sexiest Man Alive because that's the issue of People magazine the little boy is reading. But what did happen involving this picture, it wasn't a miracle to put this together, but just hold on because you'll find out what really did happen in just a little while. And where's my clicker? I'm sorry, I've lost. There's a lot of technology to art, please bear with me. Where is my? Okay. So, Willie Gillis goes to college. Willie Gillis is a recurring character of Rockwell's. He's shown here benefiting from the GI Bill, which allowed World War II veterans to go to college after the war. Originally, the update was simply going to be that he was now a bearded, techno-loving stoner. In my version, The boy is returning from Afghanistan, and he's also benefiting from the GI Bill. He's going to college, but he got another kind of education at the war when he lost his foot. He is on meds. He is studying, though. He has his Purple Heart, and the bike, helmet, and the guitar show that he still does manage to enjoy his life. I like to thank Joseph Cisneros, the model, and Robbie Kellerman, who let me have the location in her house. Okay, in this famous original, Freedom from Fear, Rockwell shows how the American home is safe in the U.S. as bombs rage over there in the Blitzkrieg, the safe world of the Rockwell family. Meanwhile, today, and maybe in another neighborhood, try as the parents do to protect their kids, they can never really feel safe or relaxed. This is inspired by the culmination of recent events. Eric Gardner, Freddie Gray, Michael Brown, Sandra Bland, and just yesterday, Sam DuBose. My version is called Freedom from What? The miracle is how this family came to model for me for free, and they're here. Let me tell you what happened. My blog was a little racy, and Warren Dews didn't like that children could see it, and I said, don't go to church for me, man. Children are supposed to be on Facebook anyway. And we got into it, but I didn't want to just be all New York on him and tell him where to go. I said, you know, this could be a good guy. Let's just talk it over. So we talked it over, and we just stayed Facebook friends for a while, for a couple years. And then I needed to do this picture, and he was the only one I knew who had kids, because he was so concerned the kids would see it. So I said, hey, Warren, I'm doing this picture. This is all through Facebook. Do you want to help me out? He said, sure. So, we had never even met in person. He got his wife, his 3 kids in the car. They drove all the way down from Dalton or Hinsdale through a snowstorm to Rob Green's studio for no money. They just wanted to help me say this. That was a miracle. I gotta say, they also wanted to meet Eric Williams, who's playing the father. Eric was an NBA star, but you know, that might have had something to do with it. So anyway, I gotta thank Roberta McCulloch Dews, West and Kennedy Dews, and also Warren Jr., who came and helped me out. I got to thank Rob Green, who lets me shoot in Moffitt studio, which is only 10 minutes from where we are right now. This is the first time that I got to work in the studio. It's a composite, and I'll explain to you how it was made in just a little while. I thought I'd use the girl in the mirror to talk about hair and racial relations. In the original, the little girl laments that she doesn't look as glamorous as Jane Russell. In mine, she was going to be a blonde girl with stringy hair who wants a bushy afro like one of Nicki Minaj's wild wigs. The model was already chosen when I had an even better idea, that the girl would see herself in the mirror as a Boy Scout. The original model's mother was horrified at the idea, and she backed out. But that only led to my finding Chloe Carbonneau, an outspoken LGBTQ advocate at the age of 12. Her mother, Cherise Charbonneau, was completely supportive and even helped me out with the props. We call this update St. Joan. The miracle here was small but important. Interestingly, the major props we found were all the same color red: the chair, the socks, the hat, and even the baseball bat. The same color, scarlet. But more importantly, I found the right concept and the perfect model to represent the transgender statement. Chloe's an activist who can be seen promoting LGBT rights on YouTube and in magazines at her young age. And she is a beautiful young model with an amazing profile. So what I thought was a setback when the original model backed out turned to be another blessing from up there. Catharsis. I was totally unprepared for both the creation and reception of the Reinventing Rockwell show that happened this past March. When I went to Sohn Fine Art, all I wanted was one wall to show maybe 4 pictures because I was going to be on the cover of the Artful Mind magazine. Well, what happened, Cassandra Sohn made me such an amazing show. I was just blown away with it. And she turned the whole gallery over to it. Droves of people came to see the show in the middle of the worst winter ever. They came and they praised me. They crowded around me, hanging on my every word. I never expected to witness people standing before one of my paintings with tears streaming down their cheeks, so deeply moved. I had to dig deep to figure out, what did I do? I'd only expected to do something fun and cool with a twist, but it seemed my idea had tapped into something far deeper than just fun. The reaction of the viewers helped me realize the healing power of images. Healing hurts so deep that people could never articulate them until they saw the cure. That's what brings on the catharsis, a lifetime of pain being released. Those of us who don't look like a Wonder Bread commercial have always had to hide our pain and being left out. In my day, black people, gays, we were left out of the public eye completely, except in menial, little, or negative ways. We were not on TV, movies, magazines, tabloids. We weren't in ads, commercials. We weren't in Norman Rockwell images on the cover of the Saturday Evening Post. But in a world where everything hurts, you just sublimate. You pretend everything's just fine. You pretend to yourself that you're included, or you just imagine if you were there, you would be, or that it just doesn't matter. The first painting I wanted to do was The Runaway. I wanted to show that it's not just the white kids in the great American homeland. There's also a little boy here in the Berkshires. He's from Nepal, as well as a female dressed in blue. I wanted to show that. And to my amazement, so many people have shown me that they want to see it too. But perhaps there's a more universal appeal to this series, one entwined in the depths of our common memories. For people of every background, Norman Rockwell images represent their own past, a shadow of the comfort of one's childhood and youth. These new images make the past live again. And the feeling is that your memories, the values you cherish, are still alive. They're evolving, but evolution is life. The process. People often wonder how Norman Rockwell was able to paint with such realistic detail. In his earlier days, working for Boys Life magazine and the Country Gentleman, as well as in the earlier years of the Post, he did draw from live models. You can see how the earlier works are generally more stylized and not as photoreal as the later works. Here's one from 1921. This is from 1918, not photographic at all. Much unlike After the Prom. Like the vast majority of his later paintings, this one began as a photograph. Same technique for The Girl in the Mirror. Rockwell always had a photographer on staff who would take photos of the models, usually in the studio, and a lot of them are up here in the museum here, you can see. Moving Day was a composite. The children were posed and dressed in these 3 reference photos. Then he used a giant contraption called a balopticon, which was like a forerunner of the slide projector, to project photographs onto the canvas. He would trace the contours and then color them in. Backgrounds were added, and generally from imagination or inspired from other imagery, but the models and costumes were very faithful to the original images. Pop's process. Rockwell was a painter who made oil paintings that look like photography. I'm a digital artist who makes photos that look like paintings, but we both start with the camera. In my case, usually my iPhone, although I'm graduating. I'll show you 3 examples of how it happens. Sailor's Best Friend was my first in the Reinventing Rockwell series based on Sailor on Leave. It was an easy conversion from photo to artwork, needing minimal post-production in Photoshop. The first chore is always to choose the best picture from the hundreds or more shots you take. I like this one, but this one had much better lighting due to the windshield sun reflector I bought online for $12. So this is what's happening. I planned to shoot the picture. The weather's bad. I put it off for 2 weeks. And in the meanwhile, I just happened to see on YouTube that you can buy a windshield sun reflector, and it's good for photo shoots. So I bought it, and then it made such a big difference. I mean, you can tell from this one how the color's all flat in the middle to this one, where he pops out. So that delay of the weather was another blessing. So it was easy to move this one. I needed to move the shoes a little bit closer to the hammock. I wanted to adjust the lighting and the shadows a bit. But the real skill in this came with getting the dog treats off the hammock. I don't know if you can see here, these dog treats. That's duck liver hearts. No, duck hearts. Yeah, hearts of duck that I bought to reward Ricardo for being such a good boy. But then when I looked at the picture, it looked like Neil was lying in poop. So I had to take it out. That's Photoshop magic, with and without poop. And then, to make it look more like a painting, I had to sketch outlines around the characters. And outlining requires most of the work that I do by hand. This is another thing that we both had to do, trace the outlines. Poop gone, outlines drawn, shoes closer to the hammock, and in the light, cropped, iPhone, lighten up a bit to underline the updated time frame, and we were done. Okay, Stockbridge Fire Department to the rescue. Here's the runaway. I took the models and costumes to a real location for this shoot, Joe's Diner in Lee. Now, many people believe this is the actual location, and Joe's Diner will tell you that it is. But it was actually shot in Howard Johnson's in Pittsfield, which is gone. Anyway, people now go to Joe's Diner to think they're there, which is fine, but we're dealing with today. It's not about the past, right? So I took this picture, and I wanted to be as authentic to the original as I could, but that fell apart when I couldn't get the state trooper's uniform. So that meant we lost the black strap across the state trooper's back, and you took that out. It was an upset to the composition. So we played around with the pose until Benjamin said, "Could I wear the hat?" And Heidi let him wear the hat, and we had our pose. I love the difference in the feeling. You know this woman cares for the boy, and he's not afraid of her. She's going to take him home. But there was a huge problem in that the setting looked just horrible. That dark granite, the shadows, and all those god-awful picture frames in the background. I love the feeling here, but I knew it was just going to be a bear to pull this one off. So I isolated the models in order to change the lighting and the color of the background. Here they are cut out. With them separated, I lightened up the background and changed the seats from red to green, and this took a while. And then outlining only made things more hideous. So I kept working. I also saw there wasn't anything that said luncheonette, so I added a couple of cups on the counter, as you can see over there. To offset the picture frames, I drew in Joe's Diner as a shadow on the wall. Now the background is lighter, so the models had to be lighter too. And then the outlining, and you're done. Okay, just one more. Freedom from what? I'm sorry. The most intricate photo in this series so far is Freedom from What, based on freedom from fear. And here's the image I made in Moffitt's studio in Richmond. All we had were a couple of arrow beds for scenery. Everything else had to be added from other images or drawn in by hand. So I isolated the people, the doll, and the bed. Just the top of the bed, the bottom arrow bed I had to take out because it didn't have a sheet on it, so it kind of looks like they're floating, but that's just magic there, okay? So then I needed to put them in a room. So this is the room I found. I mean, you may not think that this has anything to do with what's going on, but I knew how it could work. This window was an easy thing. I just knew I'd have to change the perspective a little bit and the color. So you can see how I worked the wall color. I darkened it and changed it all up. But the red floor still needed to be subdued, and I needed something for the left side of the picture, a wall. I put the window in, and on the left, I used a little snippet from the original wall in Freedom from Fear. I had to paint on the floor and the light that falls on it, as well as put a bottom on the bed and the bedposts. I drew the police lights in the window by hand. Having tried several images of police cars for the window, just playing with airbrush spots of light proved to be the most evocative. I also clearly typed in the headline, "I can't breathe," because the mock-up I made wasn't legible. I added a t-shirt on the floor and did more painting to the bedposts. The legs of the bed don't really line up. All the perspective in this is not really right, which is wonderful because it makes you feel more unease. And it was coming along. It still needed some work, but I knew I had something really special happening here. Changing the overall color made it much more haunting. Then the outlines, drawn in large part by hand, give it a painterly touch. Before and after. Not Rockwell. Perhaps you're thinking that's the trick. Sketch around the outlines and you'll have a Rockwell. Well, it's not true. This painting of Sean Opry is done the same way. So is this composite of Main Street, Pittsfield. Not Rockwell. No, 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 not Rockwell. Not. Same technique, totally different results. From the moment this image made me see Rockwell in my work, I set out to understand what a Rockwell is. What I've learned through this process is that the essence of a Rockwell is something that cannot be seen with the eyes, and it can't be captured with any technique or filter alone. A Rockwell is revealed in the heart. It's a feeling, a particular kind of paternal love. And if you can catch that spirit, you'll have a beautiful day. I can truthfully say that I have caught Norman Rockwell's spirit. And since I have, my own life has been reinvented. Just 2 years ago, I saw myself as a writer, building an audience to promote an unpublished memoir. I just tried my hand at a Bawdy Advice blog. My plan was to try it out for 1 year and just see where it might take me. And it took me all the way from 7 South Street to this fantastic museum. It was lots of work, lots of luck, little miracles all the time helping me along. Do you think maybe it's Norman helping me? After learning about Norman Rockwell being embalmed in our staff room, we've joked about whenever there's like a strange sound, we go, "Whoo, must be Norman." Well, I never took it seriously, but I also hated to be in the building alone after dark. Hate it, I still do. Then something kind of strange and remarkable happened. Earlier, I said there was no miracles shooting this picture, and there weren't. But Colette, who modeled as the hairstylist, told me something very strange the day after Reinventing Rockwell opened at Somme Fine Art. It was a quiet Sunday with hardly anyone working, so Colette was alone in the staff room watching that interview I did on NBC News, Albany. She hadn't seen it live, so she was streaming it on her phone. I was working the reception desk when she walked in, totally stunned. She told us that as soon as she finished watching the interview, the hot water came on. She had to get up and turn it off. She was totally freaked because nobody was in the room when it happened. I thought that was interesting. But I skeptically went to the kitchen sink just to check it out. I was thinking that maybe somehow somebody just left the water on a little bit and the pressure built up and it just happened over time. So I walked in, approached the sink, and looked in, but I couldn't see anything, proving or disproving anything. That's when Colette told me I was at the wrong sink. I was looking at the kitchen sink. She meant the mop sink. We have a sink by the back door that's a remnant of when the room was a restaurant kitchen. Yeah, before the salon, there was a restaurant kitchen in the same room where Norman Rockwell was embalmed. The thing is that we had never used the sink. We had the place open 10 years and never once used it. Nothing was pressing up against the faucet. Nothing was near. We had a laundry bag and some garbage there on their way out the door. And sure enough, there was water in the sink when I looked. Soon after that, there were other unexplained events that I won't go into now because it's getting a little late and I have to save it for another lecture. Inviting me, oh, wait, sorry. Okay. It's fun to speculate about ghosts or even believing I could be haunted, but I'd much rather focus not on the ghosts, but on the miracles. And a huge miracle was still in store for me. For soon thereafter, I got a phone call from these happy people. Where are they? They're here. Okay. From these happy people. Okay. Inviting me to Springfield to become artist in residence for the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination and receive a civil rights award for my work. Here I am with the chairman of the MCAD, Jamie Williamson, and her assistant, H. Harrison, when I was delivering my work the night before the conference. We put on a little exhibition in this big room full of 500 very important people, a mayor, police chiefs, any number of commissioners, educators, and such, and their helpers. That's my Civil Rights Award for my exemplary commitment to the advancement of civil rights from the 9th Annual Northeast Regional Conference on Fair Housing and Civil Rights. Thank you. I still have a hard time believing that people think so much of my efforts. I was just doing something I believed in, trying to show a new point of view, and I'm overwhelmed now to see how many of you share my vision of a diverse, loving community that's as strong and righteous as we make it. And if this weren't enough for my nerves to handle, in this crowd of civil rights workers from all over the Northeast, I was seated with the other honorees, among whom just happened to be Major General Dr. Joseph A. McNeil. Now, McNeil is the man who way back in 1960 was one of the Greensboro Four. McNeil himself is credited for creating the very first sit-in at the Woolworth's lunch counters. He made national news and started a national trend in sit-in demonstrations, which just meant that they and other blacks were going to sit at the lunch counter until they were served. My life came to full circle at that moment because when I was 8 years old, my mother dressed me and my brother up to go to our local Woolworths. That's where I walked in my first picket line, a picket line in support of that very same sit-in sit-in that was being conducted by this very same man, the Major General, Dr. Joseph A. McNeil. Now this is a genuine American hero, a man who risked everything for his civil rights and for mine. He could have been jailed. He could have been expelled from college. He could have been lynched. But he had the courage and the resolve to do that sit-in until, in July, after 175 days of protests and boycotts, the Greensboro Woolworth was desegregated at their lunch counter. And we were being honored with the same award. This is such a humbling distinction. I don't know how I deserve to be in the presence of such real heroism, such greatness, but I do intend to live the rest of my life becoming worthy. Future plans. What I want now, more than anything, is just to do more of these paintings. I now have only 8. I'd like to complete 20 for a show that I'm preparing as artist in residence of the MCAD. I've already begun to cast models for the next few paintings, and I can't wait to get into the studio. Right this very moment, Pops Peterson. Yeah, I'm the happiest guy in the entire world, okay? Take a look. This is what it looks like. How many moments in somebody's life does your wildest dream come true in full force? I wanted to be in a museum since I was 14 years old and went to painting school. I just wanted a picture in a museum. So something like this, even though it took 50 years, whatever, wow. This is a big moment for me. So, and it never could have happened without my dream being shared by the people who love me and who ushered me along. This project and my entire art career is only the result of an amazing community full of good people who inspired me, modeled for me, gave me opportunities, lent me their houses, their property, their studio, and their time. I want to thank every one of you because you've changed my life. You're the essence of Rockwell's spirit, alive as ever. To you. Special thanks to Laurie, Norton, Moffitt, who has supported me from the very beginning, to Michelle, Clarkin, Stephanie Plunkett, Tom Daley, and everyone else here at the museum for your help and assistance. I want to thank my daughter, who helped me with the project that actually didn't happen. I'm going to tell you about it, though. We have these little pieces of a picture, and I'd like you, whoever can help, take a gold marker and write one word that Norman Rockwell means to you, and hand it back to us, and we're going to assemble it. And it's going to have a silhouette of Ruby Bridges and everybody's meaning of Norman Rockwell. I'm going to call it Rockwell's World. So the pieces are here, so if you can help me out, I would really appreciate it. Anyway, special thanks and love to Annie Unger, who couldn't be here, but I know she's watching. Annie, I love you. And it's my great honor and privilege to serve this important museum. And I look forward to working with you as much as possible to keep Norman Rockwell alive and vital and known to new audiences. If anyone is interested in buying one of my canvases, please contact Cassandra Sohn of Sohn Fine Arts, who's here today. Isn't she? Yeah, thank you, Cassandra. And finally, this is where the names will go on top of this image. And finally, that would be the latest. Okay. Thanks to everyone who took a moment to write one word. These pieces were a puzzle. You'll see the puzzle pieces. If you can hang around, we'll probably get them done today. See you later. Oh my God, you're standing up? Oh my God, I gotta take a picture of this. Oh my God, standing ovation. Thank you. Okay, if anybody has